The Valley, a melting pot of movers and shakers, creatives and makers. A place with so much soul and culture, the Valley of the Sun shines on its own. This is the city we call home. A city that's alive, driven, and full of life. Where others try, we make it happen. To the city that made us, we got you. We are the culture.
Welcome to ASAP Elite. I'm your host, Rob Penn, along with my wonderful co-host, President of Equity and Inclusion and Diversity Chief Officer at Stony Brook University, former Olympian, Dr. Judi Clarke.
It is my pleasure to be here, and I'm looking forward to the conversation.
Well, thank you so much. Now, our next guest is the epitome of achievement, success, and perseverance, a direct illustration of Black excellence and leadership. Please allow me to welcome the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at Arizona State University, Chris Howard. Hello, sir.
Rob, nice to see you, man. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, no, we're doing everybody a service bringing you on, man. Thank you for coming on, taking out your time, man. This is amazing.
My pleasure.
Dream come true. All right, let's get going. All right, can you please share with us your professional background and experience as Chief Operating Officer in the public enterprise sector, specifically within college athletics?
Yeah, sure. So my background is I'm a United States Air Force Academy graduate, class of 91, where I played football, was an academic All-American on a team that beat Army 3 times and Navy 4 times and won 3 Commander-in-Chief's trophies. So let's just set the record straight. Although my Falcons had some problems with Army last week or 2 weeks ago, we did beat Navy. I won the I won the Campbell Trophy, the William B. Campbell Trophy, which is the top scholar athlete in college football. I was the first recipient. That was 1990, and that is sort of, they call it kind of the Brainy Heisman. It was the #1 top scholar athlete, senior football player in the nation. So I'm very honored to have achieved that award. Went to Oxford on a Rhodes Scholarship. Served in the Air Force as a helicopter pilot and as an intelligence officer. Got out and after about 8 years went to the reserve, had some stints in corporate at Bristol Myers Squibb. They sent me to business school at Harvard Business School. So I did the Air Force Academy, Oxford, Harvard Business School. At one point, my dad said, "Boy, when are you going to start going to school and get a job?" I'm like, "They're paying me, Dad. They're paying me to go to school. Why am I going to stop?" Yeah. So I went to Harvard Business School and was headed to be a junior executive at General Electric. Ended up getting called up and went to Afghanistan and ran human intelligence operations, overt collection for then General Lloyd Austin, now Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. Came back, was at GE for maybe 2 years or so roughly, and was recruited to higher education at this point to be a vice president, like Judi there, and vice president for strategic and leadership initiatives at the University of Oklahoma under a guy named David Bourne. Did that for 4 years, and I ran a small liberal arts college in Virginia called Hampton-Sydney College, and then I ran Robert Morris University in Pittsburgh. So I was university president for 13 years. Very quickly, uniquely suited to do this job in this place called Arizona State, which is this huge enterprise, which is a $5 billion operating budget, 180,000 students, 350,000 learners that are not even degree seeking, but actually just upskilling and reskilling, almost $1 billion in research. As the chief operating officer. So it's basically directing plans and operations for the university. He's one of the top 5 executives. And with athletics, although the athletic director is appropriate, reports directly to the CEO or the president of the university, I'm part of that leadership team that helps coordinate his efforts. And then also as university president, our athletic directors reported to me for over a decade. And then I have a lot of time, you'll see later on, I'll mention it later on, working with the NCAA, working with the College Football Playoff Selection Committee, and just being on the night commission of intercollegiate athletics. So I've been involved in college sport for, since I was 18 years old. And I'm only 22 right now.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
All in a year's work, right?
Yes, right. That's right.
First and foremost, we'd be remiss without saying just the other day, Veterans Day. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your leadership, and thank you for your selfless contributions to keeping us safe.
Yeah. And
Um,
real quick, Dr. Judi Brown, Army leads the way, by the way. So
Oh yeah, I forgot. As a soldier. Thank you for your service as well, Rob. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you too, sir. Yes, sir.
All right.
I'm fully remiss. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rob.
And
Thank you.
that can't be
You as
understated.
well.
I think we take that for granted. That is absolutely a selfless act to actually put yourself in a position in which you are the face of the security of us as a nation. And didn't want anything to go. So I want to absolutely stand in a moment between the two of you and say thank you so much. And I appreciate kind of the way that you've woven in the academics and athletics because it is so intertwined. Absolutely. I mean, you can't excel in sport without having this incredible depth and breadth as it relates to your ability to navigate resiliency, tenacity, goal setting, teamwork, and comma. So I'm going to take us to our next question. In your opinion, what are some of the key challenges and opportunities in driving increased access and excellence within college athletics?
Yeah, that's a terrific question. So on the NCAA side, there are about 1,300 schools and universities and colleges that offer athletics. And, obviously the NCAA is under some stress right now, but there are ample opportunities for people of all backgrounds to compete. Thank goodness for Title IX in particular, which is at the 50-year birthday mark, which has done a phenomenal job. My wife and I give a lot to women athletics at Arizona State, especially for the women's sports side, to give real access and real equity and real opportunity. So I'm very, very proud of that. I think that, we're probably gonna get into this a little bit, but there's an interesting world happening down there around sports. So there's sort of college football, Power 5, which is like 70 schools, 68 schools. And then there's the group of 5, and then there's like everything else, even including men's basketball, that are so different. So I think about access and equality and opportunity. It really is pretty good across the board. I think that the one thing we have to be mindful of in terms of really access, especially for underrepresented minorities and first generation, is that some sports are, and this is not a critique, some of the travel sports are getting to be so expensive. So say hockey or baseball, to some extent soccer and volleyball, that you're kind of selecting to a certain socio-economic strata to be competitive, to get the reps you need to be competitive. I think that's something we have to be aware of at the collegiate level and speak to our fellow coaches and administrators and parents and athletes at the, at the sort of, I won't say K-12 level, but the middle school and high school level. We have to be very mindful of that. And then, but I do think in general, there's never been a better time to be an athlete in the country. So I would just leave it at that.
Now, what strategies have you implemented to ensure that all student athletes have equal opportunities to succeed academically and athletically?
It's very interesting you say that. I was at the UCLA ASU game, and yes, our Sun Devils did forks up. They did prevail. They beat the Bruins last Saturday night. I was in the Rose Bowl. That was a great night. Unless you were wearing baby blue Bruin UCLA colors, you were happy if you were a Sun Devil. And I mentioned that because I had one of my friends. I'm in a fraternity with a guy named Ramsey J. Jr. Wonderful guy. He actually ran track at Fresno State. I had him up in the box for the game, in the suite for the game. And in the box, President Michael Crow, the president of ASU, was up there. Now, people recognize Michael was through the javelin at Iowa State, right? Mm-hmm. So people understand, no, he's a D1 athlete, and we're going into the Pac-12, and he played in the Pac-8. Let me tell you why I said that. Ramsey J. Sr., Ramsey's dad, played football when Michael was throwing at Iowa State, when Michael was throwing the javelin. And in fact, one of the guys, the quarterback of Iowa State, Ramsey knew him and Michael knew him. And Michael said, and that was Ramsey's dad's teammate. He said, I tutored him when we were at Iowa State. I thought, what a great story. And here's the moral of the story. There's a lot of great tutoring going on in athletics in the highest of levels. When I was at University of Oklahoma, I taught Sam Bradford, the football player who won the Heisman. He's one of my students. Great student in his own right, by the way. Blake Griffin was also on campus with me.
Okay.
But the resources that the athletic programs, big and small, but especially the big ones, make to our student athletes, that if they avail themselves to, there's this real opportunity. The best tutors, yeah, the best counselors, the best folks to sit down and kind of map their academic trajectory. There's a lot out there, Judi and Rob, and I'm very proud that Arizona State does that as well. And most of these top programs, these elite programs, they have elite academic access and elite academic resources. I wish we could do that for the entire university. I always like to say, I just helped launch a tutorial, counselor program for academics for our ROTC cadets and midshipmen. And I said, and they came in there, they said, hey, Dr. Howard, let's model it like they do with athletics. I said, well, good enough for athletes, good enough for our future officers of our services. So in some ways, the athletic program sets the standard.
And one of the things that you mentioned, which I don't think we as higher education do a very good job of, we don't leverage our alumni. We tend to think that we look at real-time students during the time that they're at our institutions, or sometimes we do corporate partnerships and so on, but we have alumni that are absolutely emotionally and physically connected to the institution, which are positions that have an opportunity to really create kind of wraparound services for our students and our student athletes. And I just don't think we necessarily see that in the way in which it has the ability to really kind of supplement and support the things that we. Can you talk a little bit about that?
I sure can, Judi. I always consider alumni to be a little bit like another faculty, right? You have your tenured faculty, your non-tenured faculty, and you have your alumni. Because in some way they can be teachers, tutors, counselors, advisors, etc., just like your faculty can be. Well, not exactly, but in a way that your faculty can be, that sort of depth and breadth. So I agree with you 1,000%, and I have been very committed and very precise in communicating and creating programs so our alumni will be in the lives of our student athletes. I think it's a very, very good point and a very, very good opportunity. And by the way, they're usually very cheap. They do it for free. It's a nice match because quite often they're looking for talent, and and you're looking for opportunity. I would say that one thing you have to do with them with your alumni, Judi, is you need to coach them up, because they played the sport 10, 15, 20 years ago. The sports are different. The students are different. Their student athletes, they're great. At the core, they're exactly the same. How that manifests itself can be a little bit different. That's okay. So all it takes a little bit of coaching, but they're former student athletes, so they're coachable. So I think that you are underutilizing your resources at hand if you do not work with your alumni to work with your student athletes. And it's been joyful for me to see that, to be able to see that kind of marriage happen here at places like ASU and my previous institutions.
Conversation last week with the Sun Angel Collective. We realized that there is no NIL program set up for these for the former athletes and alumni. So I believe that setting up a foundation or a service or resource of something of that magnitude will allow them to work to feel appreciated for one, but also take advantage of their NIL still and the pull that they have, and also their name, like I said, their NIL period with the draw that they have to the school. Yeah. That's beginning to happen around the country, and I would love to see that happen at Arizona State.
No, it's a great point. I think thanks to the people Sun Angel Collective for what they're trying to do to allow student athletes to leverage their name, image, and likeness, which I've been a fan of and am a fan of. I think it's a great thing to do. I think back to that ESPN 30 for 30, Fab Five freshman. Jimmy King is from my hometown. He went to school across town from me, went to the same church, and we went to my city's athletic Hall of Fame together. We're in the same class, me and Jimmy King. He was on that Fab Five freshman. I remember Chris Webber and Jalen Rose saying, Juwan Howard, we didn't have money, and they're making billions, and we didn't have enough money to buy gas. Yeah. So profiting from our name, image, and likeness, I want to go on record as saying I think that's the appropriate thing to do. I think specifically at ASU, the Sun Angel Collective presents a real great opportunity. I love the way the leadership's leaning in on that. There's some interesting things going on. When it came out, it came out kind of lumpy and hot in terms of how we're going to do this thing. We've had some inducement, which is paying athletes to play. That's wrong, right? Universities and athletic programs were a little bit gun shy because we were kind of told to keep everything at arm's length. And then we were told that, no. Like boosters, you have responsibility for their actions and you can be held to account for the actions, right or wrong, for what happens in these collectives. But that's, you know, I talk to the NCAA on a regular leadership at the NCAA on a regular basis. There's been fits and starts in that regard, right? Kind of, kind of up and down in that. And so it's a little bit, and as a result, it's been, kind of finding your footing at a place like the collective. Sunday Collective has been a little bit more difficult. But I think now we have the alignment and the interest to get it right for the student athletes the right way, following the rules and regulation, but also in a way that's exciting for our student athletes. I think you're going to see something come down the pike as well, though, Rob. You didn't ask this question, but I think that, Charlie Baker, the former governor of Massachusetts, who runs the NCAA now, is pushing hard with the other commissioners to get legislation to regulate NIL in the sense that you have the same set of rules from state to state. Because now you think about it, you have a different rule in California that you have in Texas, that you have in Louisiana. It's not fair. And the fundamental thing, and I'll stop here, the fundamental thing that we want in college sport, in addition to our student athletes' mental and physical well-being, is we want fair play.
Yes, sir.
We want fair play. We want, again, some coaches will recruit better than other coaches, some will coach better, whatever. But we want, and even if you fundraise better than but you don't want the rules to be different across the board. Right. That's problematic for us as Americans. So anyway, I think that's a great question. And I feel like we're at a tipping point and it's going to tip the right way.
Fair play, but there's some accountability that I don't believe our athletes have a full understanding as relates to decisions. And I mean, and there's a lot of regulatory things, there's a lot of tax-based things, there's a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
Policy and so on. And I feel that, and I don't know, which I love about the legislation, because it will ensure that there's consistency across all institutions to ensure that when you are using, or when you are, your understanding of the NIL is comprehensive, not just from a financial transactional perspective. Because my fear is that not having that knowledge to make educated decisions, I fear that some of our athletes are going to be in positions in which, whether it's a legal position or it's a position that even may skew to ethical or moral, I just feel that we've got to wrap ourselves around our athletes and understand that this is for some a lot of money.
Yes.
And when we talk about first generation, we talk about social mobility, but we don't talk about the accountability and the ethics of giving people the education that they need to make good choices.
I think you're onto something. So the number one thing is going to be education and awareness. You're absolutely right. People want people to make informed decisions. Even the idea of like who's advising you. So in the professional leagues, you have an agent, and to be an agent, you have to go through certain qualifications to be able to represent somebody. Here, it can be cousin Frida and Uncle Bob that can say, "I got you," and they may or may not know what they're doing. And what does it mean at a deeper level when someone is signing off on some financial deal? One is they know they have to pay taxes on that. Yep. They may or may not know that. So they need to understand they don't put themselves in jeopardy by not paying their taxes. Number two, what if you sign away your rights for future, gain? So you sign something while you're in college, then you go pro and you think you're going to sign something else. And they say, no. You signed something with me when you were 17 years old, 18 years old back at University of X. And you just didn't know any better. So to your point, Judi, I think we have a moral obligation to ensure that. Now, the good news is that the NCAA is allowing for more. There's always been education, but there's even more touch and more a more comprehensive relationship between athletic programs and student athletes in terms of being able to support them for NIL. The other thing, how about this one? People don't talk about this a fair amount, but international athletes, because of the visa they come over on, they can't benefit from NIL. Now they can benefit from NIL back over in their home country, but they do it here, they might find themselves in violation of the visa status and then out of the country and unable to participate or compete. So lots of issues to deal with there.
Navigate the challenges and complexities of complying with various regulatory and regulations and standards, which push for innovation and progress within college education, but you balance that with the mission, the academic and the research mission of the institution.
You got to start with first principles. I think if you think that you're going to run an organization just on the rules and regulations, you know, that organization has no heart, it has no soul, it has no esprit de corps, it has no North Star. It's just a functionary entity, and that's not where you want to go. I work for a guy, Bob McDonald, the former CEO of Procter & Gamble and Secretary of Veteran Affairs, and I worked on a commission with him called MyVA when he was in the Obama administration, looking to reboot the VA, Veteran Affairs. And one of the things Bob told me is that you want to have a principles-led organization, you want to have a rules-led organization. Now we got to follow the rules, but principles trump rules for breakfast, night and day and midday. And what I mean by that is you set your vision, you set based upon your values, you set your strategy based upon those values, and you get those going first. And then the other things tend to fall in line, because if you're trying to trace every regulation, every piece that you're gonna, it's kind of putting the cart before the horse, right? And if you do it that way, you're gonna miss the real opportunities to achieve something big and special. And going back to your point about, servicing your student athletes, I think the North Star, and I was fortunate enough to be the 28 or 29 people that rewrote the Constitution of the NCAA. It was led by Secretary Bob Gates, former Secretary of Defense. And the first thing that we said, the student athletes led this charge, was that it should be about the mental and physical well-being of our student athletes. We rewrote the Constitution and put that in the preamble, number one thing. And so, and as we did it with the NCAA, the 28 of us came together, the same should be for the university. What are our North Stars? What is our mission? And then things follow this way, as opposed to how do we stay within the rules and color within the lines. If you start with this part and follow those rules and edicts, you're going to be fine. And I think that, and I think that the best programs will run that way.
Looking ahead, what do you envision as the future of college athletics in terms of increased access, excellence, and impact within the context of public enterprise?
Yeah. I think that it's interesting. I love the way you close that out, because you said public enterprise. So Arizona State University, we consider ourselves a public enterprise because we have the university, which has a knowledge, learning, and an academic sort of components, but it also has other entities around technology, around commercialization that make us all an enterprise. And we consider sport to be a part of that, because sport, college sport, and I was on a night commission. I'm on the night commission at Intercollegiate Athletics, and I think it was Jay Billick from Duke, the commentator. He was talking about college sport is an enterprise and a business in and of itself, different than pro sport, right? And this is not to exploit our student athletes at all. This is not in any way untoward. It's just simply saying that in America, college sport is so big, it's a big business, right? As well. So, as we go forward, we're going to recognize and we're going to reconcile that we're in the business of college sport. So college sport, so the college and the sport part means fair play. The college part means an education, and educational advancement will be a part of it. Although not every student athlete is going to want to finish up their degree in 4 or 6 years. We're going to encourage them to. We want academic progress toward that. We want to reward them and make sure programs that are doing that. And if you don't have enough academic, your APR or your GSR are not moving in the right direction, you should not be able to go to bowl games, participate in playoffs, etc. So there's a college sport piece of it. But it also is a business. It does generate revenue and bottom line to the university or the college, and also nowadays to the student athlete because of NIL, which is great. So I think that the future of the sport will reconcile, Rob, all those elements. The best programs will reconcile all those elements.
Now, I'm gonna read a quote on your page, and it's related to that exactly. It says, "To continue to realize the aspirations set forth by the ASU Charter, we require a new model for operating, one that is built to scale up as it serves more learners and more communities. In doing so, ASU has emerged as a public enterprise deeply committed to discovery, creativity, and innovation of public value."
Thank you very much. And it's so cool because you're reading that quote from my website around ASU as a public enterprise, right, Rob?
Yes, sir.
And I consider Sun Devil Athletics, again, foundationally supporting student athletes, fair play, competition, etc. But also everything you just described, we can do that through Sun Devil Athletics in sport in a great way, in a positive way, in a non-exploitative way, in a very energizing, word you used before, a very innovative way. We're going to work through that. So I appreciate you using my words not against me, but with me.
Yes,
and
sir.
I think that we want to situate, big time college sport in a way that makes sense for everybody, where everybody wins.
Yes, sir.
Except for UCLA. UCLA lost. We beat them, so everybody else can win.
And it's very aligned to the quote that Rob just read, and it's very aligned to what we navigate every day. And there is kind of a national discussion around higher education as a public good.
Yeah.
I think a lot of, particularly with public institutions versus private and so on, but I think the public good question, and there's like so many perspectives of the multipliers of having, number one, every higher education institution is a number one economic driver in that region. Not, workforce development, the research, the education, So again, I find that branding and a sense of real connectivity to the brand and the institution many times comes from sport.
Yeah, the front door. Yeah.
It comes from academic and research accomplishments, absolutely. And I'm originally from the Big Ten, so I'm from that machine. But
yeah,
when there is a winning team or a winning conference, enrollment goes up.
Yes.
You may have academic programs, research programs, whatever, but when you have a winning conference and or a winning program, it goes up.
Merchandise also.
What does, Rob?
Merchandise does also.
Oh yeah, merch does do. That's right. It becomes a virtuous rather than a vicious cycle. So the question becomes, well, then what do you do with that? What are the responsibilities? And so the responsibility is not to be exploitative, because one can get into this thing where you start treating your student athletes as a means to an end rather than an end in and of themselves. They want to value them, indemnify their humanity and who they are as young people, youngish people coming up. So that's number one. We don't want to get it upside down in that regard. But then number two, we want to welcome it with open arms. When I had the privilege of sitting around the table and have sat at the front of the table when I had leaders of big time research, big time academic programs, big time fundraising programs, and I put the AD right there because of what they can bring to the fight. And think about it, especially at this level of sport, at like Arizona State University, where you have every Saturday a 3.5 hour commercial where you can show the best of your campus. And there are other sports as well, and then if somebody catches that, they see that, talking about enrollment going up, I could name on the basketball side, the Cinderellas, UMBC, George Mason, St. Peter's, Fairleigh Dickinson. People know those schools, Oral Roberts, people would not otherwise of Florida Gulf Coast. I'm naming you can put yourself where you were watching with your popcorn and your soda, watching these people play, and all of a sudden you get a little interest in them. Either that, or even like a Big Blue or Arizona State, it sort of says, hey, excellence is excellence and steel sharpens steel. I will say this: Arizona State University just joined AAU, the Association of American Universities.
Mhm.
About 4,000 colleges and universities out there. They're 2-year colleges, community colleges. They're liberal arts, comprehensive master's degree, and then doctoral granting. The upper part of that tier are called R1 or Carnegie classification R1s. There are hundreds of those. There are only 68 or so that are AAU, American Association of University. We just got accepted in that maybe 3-4 months ago. We've been thinking about trying to get in there for decades. We're very proud of this accomplishment. It's Harvard, it's Yale, it's Texas, it's Michigan, it's Ohio State. Spring, yes, absolutely right. I know, great research in there. I was going to commend you. Stony Brook has a great reputation. However, Stony Brook's the exception in the sense that 53% are Power Fives.
Oh, absolutely.
So the majority have big time sports and big time research. So we think of these things hand in hand. And there are exceptions. There are Ivies, there are D3 schools that are there, but nothing wrong with that. But it's kind of neat that when you think about the most powerful and important institutions of higher learning in America, they also play some pretty good big time football on Saturdays.
Oh yeah.
And that's, to me, it's not mutually exclusive, because I just feel that, that is like a balanced, I just don't think, and of course I come out of the Big Ten, so it's a machine to me. And, but I just think that, having the academics, the research, whatever your clinical enterprise is, and having the athletics, I mean, those 4 pillars will resonate bipartisan, social, economic, every aspect of what you would consider as far as resonating with your community and those you want to engage with. That's the 4 pillars.
Well, before we get out of here, we like to ask our guests to leave our audience with words of affirmation. Hopefully the next Chris Howard is watching. The floor is yours.
Well, as I would say this, you think about your life, think about it in terms of a compass and less of a map. Think about your true north, what excites you, what drives you, what motivates you, and every day do a little something to move toward that North Star. And don't be deterred if it takes you a little bit further right than you thought I was going to go, a little bit further left, but keep your eyes on the prize and keep working toward those goals. Work smart, work hard, be gracious, stay hungry, and play to win.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Yeah.
My pleasure.
Yeah, you guys have so much in common, and it's so much responsibility. I want to thank both of you guys for coming on. And wow, we really appreciate it.
Well, thanks. We wouldn't have met but for you, right, Judi? We wouldn't know each other, but this is a good guy up here in the corner.
Absolutely.
So great. Thank you so much. Judi, what was your Michigan, right?
State.
Me?
Yeah, state.
Michigan State?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Cliff Wharton.
I'm the Wolverine.
Oh, I got you. I remember.
Yeah.
Cliff Wharton was one of my, you have green behind you, that was just funny. Cliff Wharton was one of my heroes, the first African American to run a major university. I got his book right here, autographed by him.
Absolutely.
He's an amazing guy. And then what was your event?
So I ran track and field, 400-meter hurdles in the silver medal in the 1984 Olympics, but I did from the 100-meter hurdles all the way to the 800. Yeah.
Wow. Silver medal 84?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. 80 we're going to have that 84 was in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Los Angeles will be back in 2028.
So that's you won in 84.
I got the silver medal in 84.
Well, yeah, silver medal. That's so with Carl Lewis's heyday, Carol Lewis's heyday, Edwin Moses, and
Edwin's a very good friend of mine. Very close friend.
I'm actually ironically, I'm reading a book right now about Morehouse.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that's awesome.
My cousin's a professor. That's great. Well, listen, I got to head out to this dinner, but it's a pleasure to meet you, Judi and Rob. You keep doing it and doing it and doing it well. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much.